Gamer 1745 here. We had a bit of a false start. Riveting that. Okay. I don't like that this is black. This is not going as well as I had hoped. Okay, there we go. That's better. That's a bit better. Okay, we are producing a lot to get more fuel up here and going. And I need to produce a few more carrier air groups. That down below these guys. Make sure they are in production. Okay. Well, we will be making the episodes here, but we're going to move you there because playing this is really a global operation as the United States and should be played very, very slowly. And I have not been doing that because I have been trying to keep things moving along for, you know, purpose of the show, as it were. Okay, well, at the end of last week, we were we experienced an invasion. Okay, yeah, we based it here. Okay, cuttlefish, you can come up to here, I guess. Now let's look at supply lines. Okay, they're doing fine here. These guys are doing good there. I guess we'll patrol here. They could go back somewhere and get paired. That would be good. Let me tab over. Well, let me save this here. Good. Yep. And we had a bit of a problem with not maintaining things as well as we should. They're in bad shape, so once these guys get over here, we're going to do some swapping out. So hopefully that will go well. Let's move you up to there. Okay, so far I'm more or less satisfied with getting everything underway. Oh, organized. CAGs, maybe I should say. Carrier air groups. See who they put in charge of this guy. No, not that guy. We have a naval ship destroyer. Maybe they got assigned to another one. I don't see any. So, oh well, there's one right there. Okay. Right. Well, let's get ready to make an episode here. How is everyone? There's a few people here. How's everyone doing? Oh, let's do this thing. Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice. And yes, we're playing as the United States. Now, we have broken out from, well, there's a lot of critical stuff going on. We've broken out from Spanish Morocco here up near Tangiers, and I am in no doubt of our ability to defeat Vichy France's forces here. They've been, the rest of Germany took the opportunity to occupy the rest of Vichy France, which in my opinion, if they do that option, all this territory should just flip over to US control. But not the French, because we need to supply it. France cannot supply it. Now, what we also had, as I was saying to the small live audience here, this really needs to be played slowly, and I'm not doing so because we're looking at a global operation. At the end of last week, we saw this fleet devastated by Japanese carriers. And we left these guys down here, so they're coming up here, and we're gonna put them to. We're not going to combine them into one fleet, but we're going to have them all in the same area. Okay, now that they're here, we're going to fly these guys back to San Francisco. Sounds like a nice place for them to hang out. Let's fly these guys back here to rebase the carrier. Now we are, even though we have that coming, we swapped. We have 5 carriers, so we're down a whole air group. So let's grab the other one. I want to make sure the other guys were off because I think they need to get. Yes, rebase the carrier. So that way we'll have hopefully air supremacy in that sea zone. Okay, so we've gotten all of this. Let's come down and take that port. Deny them the port. supplies are flowing into there. And yes, you can get some advice on building a submarine. Hopefully you won't need to stay there, so let's get you moving forward. Okay, so we have these submarines here. Now let's look naval mode. We can convoy raid passively there, maybe. So now we've got 10 carrier groups because each of those are 2. These are just 1 because it's for a CVL light carrier. And they're not well organized, but they'll get better. So that should be enough to win most air battles, even if the enemy does we can't put them on, but that's too much. Did we lose some? Okay, what I think we'll do instead, let's get you off the ships. Put you on. We're going to rebase down to here. Hopefully they'll make it without bumping into anybody else. Hey Arno, how you doing? Just looked up and see you everywhere. Thank you so much for all your help with Facebook and just being a great moderator and a good friend. Thank you. Okay, they're getting healed up. Well, is there any news? I'm thinking of starting a new YouTube channel. One that would focus, because I don't, obviously I don't know. Sort of ridiculous to say. But I've done fairly well with some of the shorts dealing with international events, and particularly maybe I should say Ukraine. Now, thinking more of a, analyzing what's going on around the world, not just the Ukraine, though that's the hot topic, of course, now. So it wouldn't be a single, like, Ukraine focus or anything like that, but it would be more of a, what's going on and what do I think of it kind of thing, because it's, seems to do pretty well. So I'm thinking about that. Okay, so submarine crew training. You know, I'm hearing such bad things about Europe. I mean, I didn't realize, and I may have heard it before and just sort of forgot it, but there, back in summer, I guess, in Austria, was a major fire and damage to one of their primary oil refinery. So that has put really a strain on their getting fuel, as it would tend to. Okay, you can be. I'll let you know when we do this. And so I think things are going to get bad, and I watch other YouTubers talk about current events, and one of them is like almost 30 years old, and a lot of them don't know what they're talking about. And a lot of them, oh my God, there may be nuclear weapons, and they're gonna, and it's a lot of alarmist stuff that they're saying. And I was alive and around for the last 20 years of the Cold War, in which we lived under the threat of, at any moment, there could be global thermal nuclear war. And, that's mostly receded now, though it's coming back with both Russia and China. And so all these people are like, oh my God, they may nuke cities, they may do. Yeah? Did you think you were safe? Did you think that the world was just this sort of safe haven of no threats whatsoever? Really? And so I think a better perspective could be used on some of what's going on. And what would be a good day, time for another live stream? Because I would think I might want to be doing weekly live streams. Hope you'd be available to, help out, Arno. I know you may not be, depending on when we do it, but I still want to live stream, gaming stuff like we do currently. Yes. Okay, the Fifth Army. War Government Secretary of War Ministry, great. Okay. Move forward. Move forward. These guys are. Oh. Get on board the ship. Get on board the ship. Now come back up here. Now we'll invade with a mix of Marines and Army divisions. wish I wasn't such in a bad situation for fuel. Fuel faster. Formation of the Alaska Department. Yes, sure. Right. And switch that over for light armored designs. Now, let's look. Finding efficiency. Okay, we've of course now learn from your mistakes, or learn from my mistakes, people. We had such huge oil. This will help with refining efficiency, which should help with fuel conversion, hopefully. Don't know for sure. To the U.S. and get prepared. You can come forward here. Did I just read? Did I read? Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay, so we have this 5th Army group, which we had a nice, well, paratroopers. Okay, well, I know we sent back here. Let's move over there. Well, we'll wait a little bit. We're not going to be using formation of the 12th Fleet. Okay. Strategic bombing tactics have advanced. Very nice. Cancel that. mobile unit training advances. Advanced. And cruiser crew training. And it would help if I click on the correct one. Okay. Well, now we have a little bit more. There we go. Okay, let's put that division HQ, because I'm going to cobble together a division out of some of those headquarters units that we have there. Now they have some destroyer escorts to deal with submarines, a lot of surface combat ships, and a few carriers. Now let's bring all of you into here. So, Ron. No, I guess maybe not. I guess we, no, hold on, let's try this again. Yeah, there we go, okay. Now we're coming through the straits here, but Britain still controls that. There, let's send you forward as well. Okay, well, let's come down here and take out this last Spanish unit. You join the fight for Algiers as well. Let's on board. Get on board. That does give us 3 divisions, and we're going to invade here. That's some Marines up. I don't know if they've gotten here yet. No, apparently not. We can come down and back them up. Not that they need it, but south of the Tyne battle and lost a destroyer as well as killing a destroyer. Okay, I think that was the group there. Alright. Let me see if we had any extra. Aircraft put out over here. It doesn't look like it right now. Medium bomber prototypes, nice. Now let's get to work on our heavy bombers. Yes, we will buy fuel from Venezuela. Okay, well, now let's send you this way, you that way. Where's the Vichy French capital? Was here at Tangiers, or Algiers, sorry. Maybe it's down here at Dakar? Hopefully the British can handle some of these guys down here. How are we doing out here with... Okay. Pushing on these guys again. Okay. Oh. Some transports around. Now it's looking like we're doing a little better with people. Uh-oh. Those two units scare me. Go back into port. Rebase. Because I mean, these are just submarines. That should be no problem for that force, but I'm concerned it might be more than that. Why? Texas, okay. See where these were historically done. Kentucky and Louisiana. Okay, cool. Carrier crew training improved. Which allows us, no, we want to come to carrier, which should give us, it said damage control, training, improvements. I'm not seeing it. Is it over here in capital? Carrier, yes, there we go. Or not. I'm just taking our money, which indicate how they've done it. It's the Submarine. We're hitting them pretty hard. Okay, well. You just keep on going. Look at the terrain. Yeah, it's all going to be mountains. Never will really matter. And we're pushing down here on the Spanish. Okay. Yeah, it's good. We're still kicking butt. And we'll let that continue. Got another guy here. Nope. Oh, we've had a serious incident here. Yeah. Land base? I don't know. There's definitely some land-based fighters here. They're Japanese. Okay, well. We sent, I think they went up to San Francisco, but we got these guys here. Well, these are flying, yeah, they're not kegs. Close enough, but they could not do naval striking. Have fun. Use up more of my limited amounts of fuel. Move Pappy Boynton down there. And David Campbell down there. Create 2 CAG groups with that. Okay, they're in good shape now. Let's grab whatever the 2 CAG groups that are in the worst condition. Let's send them to here. S group there. Here it has replacements. Oh, they're coming behind us, but we're still coming. But well, we need to make sure that we are a supply convoy. We'll go right out of Washington, D.C., which again never had, does not have any any sort of ports. At least not of any sort of cargo hauling capability. Yeah, we'll make at least one decent division there. But these motor torpedo boats are doing a wonderful service for us. Artillery flexibility. Okay. Can they do the limbo? Okay, that's grayed out for now. I don't think we're gonna. Hey, IKB, how you doing? Been a little while since we talked. How is the railroad life? Okay, well. I'm going to now move again on those islands before my air groups become completely worn down by land-based. There are 9 units based here. We just had a week off, did lots of overtime to cover for the Queen's funeral. Ah, okay, yes. I can see how that would be important to do. Right, okay, good. Okay, so we're getting these 2 divisions currently made. Let's do, yeah, 4 more CAGs. Have some more coming, but we need them. If we can dominate the skies. Be all of American of us. Not from Ireland. Just, I'm thinking too near maybe German, sub. No, that's motor torpedo. Where's our big convoy? There. And for some reason it thinks it doesn't have fuel. Yeah, well, we're bringing in supplies, so I don't know. Well, maybe let's move it to here. Rebase. It bases the amount of fuel sort of on the base where it's going. I really would love it to move faster than. I know very little about it, quite honestly. I have not been paying close attention at all. I understand they are finally re-adding, or they're adding divisional generals in a way. So if I'm not mistaken, you can't switch them out. So that doesn't seem terribly great to me. But you know, it's a good step forward, that's for sure, in my opinion. Can still make okay. Uh, let's get a couple of more flying boats and naval bombers. They'll be useful out here in the Pacific once we get some of these islands under our control. Yeah, things are getting a bit hairy here. You guys coming out? Yeah, they're coming at a decent speed. Uh-oh, Hermann Goering Division. Okay, they lost a bunch of stuff there. Okay, Hermann Goering Division is in here, right there. No, down here. Okay. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I am not worried about fighting these Vichy French whatsoever. I am worried about fighting the Germans and the Italians. Partially because although these are German units, they're under Italian control, so they do, you know, and yeah. That does matter. No longer receive the fuel for money, damn. Okay. Heavy bomber pilot training. Well, got these guys. We're going to put them up air intercept. Southern Spain. Let's move you guys forward to that air base. And we can bomb some of the units. Okay, well, we got these guys down here. Taken care of. We're going to leave that division there because, well, we might just use them to invade somewhere. Like down in Dakar or something. Mountain HQs advance. And switch that to something maybe a bit more useful. Okay, we've won and we're pushing forward. Now this had meant to come down here and cut off the retreat, but obviously that didn't happen because better units showed up. So it's continuing just to be a pursuit. Well, okay, you can go down that way and you guys come this way. Some degree. Major victory. Okay, going here. Good. Big Red 1 is continuing to fight well. I don't know, there may be a bot over on Facebook. I just see something from Mohammed about Walmart and DirecTV, so that's probably a bot or some sort of spam you might want to take a look at. I don't know. Not that it's terribly important, but still. I just, in a way, it's just sort of fed up with all of these bots and scammers. Hangar Bay maintenance. That is here, which will allow us to do hardened airstrips. We'll go do that. Sniper warfare, which here and is grayed out. We've completed. And Marine HQs. How are we doing year-wise? Okay. We'll look for something more useful to do. V3 is taken care of here. I think they are. We can do a lot of 44s they're around to do, and I'd rather do some of them instead of well, air landing infantry. Maybe we should do that. Ah, okay. Ah, sloped armor. We want to do sloped armor. Oh, he's gone. Very good. Okay, we got some CAGs ready to go now. Okay, we have some Marine Division HQs, and let's stick these guys down here. Okay, good. So what we should do here, those guys are ready to fly out. Let's see if we can find... they look about the worst of the ones. So rebase to there, but also that there, and get 2 CAGs to a wing. Not do little bomber. Fine, good commander, but give him the right type of stuff. Command. Okay. What we should do here is Night Fighter. No, let's just go no leader. No leader and Gregory Boynton. Put that together to a CAG. And oh, somehow they got Doolittle. Okay, yeah, no leader. So they're gonna assign Doolittle here again, but let's just do no. Okay, well. It'll be a long flight. They're coming in here quickly. Well, looks like we have. Oh, they're bombing us. Gold mining good. Hopefully there. Those two, you guys come here, but keep on trucking down the way. Go. Boston Carrier Air Group. Which is not terribly good, but it will allow us to fly in another one. Don't know a good way to stop. Problems with fuel we're having here because obviously We have plenty of oil. What we don't have is plenty of fuel. I don't know. Maybe see about making some sort of thing for the U.S. Mod it someday. Well, let's see if we can do some African army recruitment. I don't know if that'll actually come of anything of that for the U.S., but we'll see. We'll do advanced tank optics as well. Okay, oh, we've lost the Persian Gulf effects. Okay, probably because they got down to here with bloody. Well, attack. Maybe that'll put them out of sorts a bit. Okay, good. So we've trapped all of these guys into here. These guys are coming up that way. Here. But that whole Hermann Goering division, we can see here, if you look over here, we can see there is a DAC unit, so a Deutsches Afrika Korps, 3 armored units, proper armored units. If those are German, that's very good for us. There's a mobile artillery, and then down here we have some of the Hermann Goering forces. So yeah, we can take out some DAC and some armor, and yeah, that will really help us out. Keep pushing on these guys. What are we doing with her? Dealing with the air units, seeming to be pretty good. Yeah. Video Oklahoma isn't doing great, but yes, we'll do the money for fuel from you. Okay, well, I guess the British retook back this. Good. And carrier aircraft prototype. That is great improvement. Grayed out currently, and let's move that research, which will soon reinforcements. Good. All right, well, we're going to end the episode here, not the live stream, but the episode here. I want to thank you all who've made it this far into the video, but particularly I want to thank Tim, Strongarm, Niagro, Timothy, and Sir Toyjet for support on Patreon. But everybody else, what I really ask is you hit that like button and you make a comment below. That really does help. All the comments do help, so helps with the algorithm. So thank you so much. See you next time for more, yes, more Hearts of Iron. All right, we'll make another episode here. And keep going. But first, I will be right back momentarily. In just a moment. It's back. Okay. Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice, and of course we're playing as the U.S. I want to particularly thank Tim, Strongarm, Niagro, Timothy, and Sir Toyjet for support on Patreon. But what I really want everyone to do is hit that like button, just smash it as hard as you can, and of course post a comment below. Those really help with channel growth, and I'd appreciate it a lot if you would be willing to do that. Thank you for doing it if you have. All right, we are getting ready here. We are destroying a lot of German forces here, including the Hermann Goering Division. Hello, Ari. And we are invading out here in the Pacific. So. No, I'm thinking about this. No. We won out here, we won here. Okay, well, we won those two places, so let's... what? Oh, we're still technically defending. The day go by and attack there. Uh-oh, Ethernet cable's dead. Yeah, that wouldn't be a good. Wouldn't be good. Okay, so massive victory here. Massive victory. The Hermann Goering Division was in this pocket. So it is gone. Some DAC units were gone as well. Where are we facing here? Okay. Okay, here. Okay, well, yeah, no, yeah. Actually, we took out, Spain is in the Axis, so we landed and we took this out here. And then instead of a naval invasion, we did a breakout into there. Let's see, we would give them money for fuel. No, I don't mind giving you the money, but it just, I'm not bringing fuel. I'm not shipping fuel across the Mediterranean. Turkey. Yeah, no, we're dealing with Vichy forces there. But Italy's done well early on and is somewhat continuing, and somehow they've been supplying here. I don't know. But what really has been a problem is Britain has not had enough transports, so they collapsed in North Africa. Yeah, enough, to transport fuel and whatnot. So they've collapsed there. But Russia, Germany a while ago did take Leningrad, but Russia's pushing them back pretty heavily here. So, and we see here along the coast is just a lot of garrison units. So, yeah, Britain keeps trying to break out of Gibraltar, but it doesn't go well for them. Yeah, well, the big problem is, well, we have some forces here, but whenever I land, it becomes a British port, and I run out of fuel because Britain doesn't have enough transports to fuel places. They can't get any fuel here. That's the problem. I can't get fuel in British or supplies in British territory. Not just fuel, but supplies. These guys are stuck out here for some reason without fuel. Okay, the Philadelphia experiment. Let's read about this. made a movie. I remember watching it years and years ago. I think it's more like a TV, made for TV movie or something. But the Philadelphia experiment is an alleged military experiment that is said to have been carried out by the U.S. Navy at the Philadelphia shipyards in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, sometime around the 28th of October 1943. The U.S. Navy destroyer escort Eldridge DE-173 was claimed to have been rendered invisible or cloaked to enemy devices. The story is widely believed to be a hoax. The Navy maintains that no such experiment was ever conducted, that the details of the story contradict well-established facts about the SS Eldridge, and that the alleged claims do not conform to known physical laws. The experiment was allegedly based on aspects of some unified field theory, a term coined by Albert Einstein to describe a class of potential theories. Such theories would aim to describe mathematically and physically the interrelated nature of forces that comprised electromagnetic radiation, gravity. In other words, uniting the fields of electromagnetism and gravity into a single field. I could see how something like this could be talked about and believed, even though it didn't happen, because there is so much secrecy going on during the war for obvious reasons. Though even in Britain, I would say, let alone the United States, Germany, the Axis in general, have very little intelligence gathering capabilities. I've watched a lot of movies made during the war, and some of them are about like the Merchant Marine and other ones, but they're all very much hitting on, loose lips sink ships. No one should talk out of turn. And, it's all good practice to not talk about when convoys are going to sail or your production numbers. And yeah, if they weren't careful at all, there would be a lot of talk floating around. That's true. But compared to the realities that, at least what we know today, feeling and remembering when a lot of people wrote books, the whole Enigma, the ultra secret, the code, reading the Germans' code was kept secret for years and years after the war. So a lot of people did not put that into the calculus of looking at the war. So maybe there were more German or Italian spies, or maybe there were more Latin American spies that were operating around, but I really don't think so. But yeah, I totally agree with the idea that you shouldn't talk too much, but I think there was an overemphasis on it. Now, what I'm guessing that there was an experiment. And just a guess from my part. And particularly because being with a destroyer escort, and in 43, what they may be trying to do is trying to render and if you look at electromagnetism, trying to render a ship non-magnetic so it doesn't trip magnetic mines or torpedoes. Because remember, and if you don't already know of the channel, you should. Druck Chinafil, guy who does great work on topics naval. So if you want to, and very heavy focus on World War II. So you should check it out. And he's been going over the a multi-part thing, not just one episode, but a multi-part series, but in between his other works, dealing with the submarine warfare in the Pacific and talking about the Mark 14 torpedo and all the problems with it. And that torpedo was meant to be a really great torpedo and would with a single torpedo sink a battleship or sink a carrier, let alone a transport ship. But through much of the war, it wouldn't even do any of that at all. And the whole idea, and it has so many flaws, but the whole idea is that it's supposed to go underneath the ship, get close enough to the ship, and then detonate below the ship. Because when you do that, most all the force goes straight up, because that's the path of least resistance. Because when you hit an explosion, yes, it wants to go in all directions at once, but if it's like an explosion laying flat on the ground, well, all the explosive, or virtually all the explosive power is going to go skyward, because it's not going to push into the ground. When it's under the water, it wants to go straight to the surface, because that, again, path of least resistance, because it's getting pressure from all sides, but the least amount of pressure is from the top. So it works like a cannon or whatever, pointed straight up into the air. So, whenever you see these explosions underwater, a big spout of water comes up straight up, because that's the way it works. Well, if you know anything about the Mark 14, their magnetic exploders were just not working for multiple reasons, either detonating too early or just not detonating at all kinds of stuff. Now, with a conventional, contact warhead of a torpedo, a lot of battleships either were built with or later given torpedo blisters, in which they are a unarmored, often sectionalized, and with watertight compartments in it, whole extensions to either side for the great, for 60-70% of the length of the ship where it's most likely to impact, with the idea, now it does add a little bit of weight to the ship, but actually it's not that bad, because when it's adding weight to the bottom. And most of the time with a lot of these ships, and I've been reading about some of the destroyers, and they're worrying about adding too much weight to the ship. Well, really, I think the weight they're worrying about is weight above the waterline, on the, above the deck, adding more guns or whatever, to making it top heavy. Not so much that it would ride lower in the water. I think riding lower in the water is an issue, but I don't think it's the main issue. I think the main issue is sticking more guns or armor or whatever, including more radars and other elements, all on the top decks of, particularly destroyers that are fairly small, as you're adding weight up there, which makes them more unstable. I think that's the big issue with adding more weight, more so than riding lower in the water. Well, putting the torpedo blister on, yeah, it adds a little bit of weight, but you're also creating a big air void spot, but you're also making it less hydrodynamic, meaning not going through the water as efficiently. But they're generally big enough that it'll detonate the torpedo into an air pocket that will not transfer the explosion too badly, hopefully, into the ship. So, yeah, and then what will happen is that section will start taking on water, and what they do then is they have the ability to flood the opposite section to balance it out. So the ship will just ride lower in the water, hopefully. Kind of thing. So you balance that out, and counter flooding is it's called, and so that works. And so you need to hit it with a lot of torpedoes to take out a battleship or a carrier if they have these torpedo blisters, and like the Taiho and others were given those later on or as Taiho has constructed, I believe. But torpedo blisters don't stop, because they're on the sides. They don't stop things coming beneath them. What I think this is an attempt Well, and I'll read Aries' comments in a minute. What I think this was an attempt to create a condition in which does not have electromagnetic signal for likely a torpedo, but possibly magnetic mine, but I think torpedo. And you're doing it with a real ship, but a destroyer escort is sort of an American equivalent of a frigate, if you will. It's a DE is smaller, but not as small as like a Canadian Corvette. It's sort of definitions, but and so they're doing it with a real ship, but they're not taking at least by 43, a ship that's desperately needed somewhere. And so that's what I think they're doing. That's my guess, is that they're trying to make it invisible to, not to like people seeing it, but to, magnetic observation, if you will, or detection or whatever. That's my guess. And whatever they found, I don't know if anything remarkable happened, but I could easily see somebody either during the war or immediately after the war that was somehow responsible or somehow involved in it, talking about it, and then a few other people that sort of where you served on it and sort of talked about it, but everybody has to, well, no, we weren't trying to make it invisible. Yeah, no, there was no cloaking. The ship didn't disappear. I don't know. I'm just sort of guessing that that's probably what's behind it all. Oh, we have another guy, another situation over on Facebook. It looks like, Arno. Same person. Maybe you ought to ban them. It looks like, okay. Maybe invasion of the islands in the Med. You could go better. Yeah, the whole plan is to first control the Mediterranean, or the African coast. I'm concentrating on that area, and then we will look at various Spanish and Italian islands for sure. Well, I think it's more than just Ari staying with his sister, so I think it's more of the family staying there. And after a while, I'm sure they're getting tired of it. But yeah, Ari, just since they're talking about it, Ari lives in Kentucky and in the area that was hit pretty bad a while ago with devastation. We can say, I don't want to just say storms and minimize it, but devastation. So yeah, so we're all rooting for Ari to get back to some semblance of normalcy. Jeez, I'm just looking at you. Yeah, the family's there. Yeah. I sort of understood that was the case. And that's got to be a crowded situation. Hey, we're Americans. We left Europe to get out of crowded situations and move into the big wide open where we could spread out and not live, not live on top of each other, jammed in with each other, except for, of course, New York. They like to do that in New York for some reason, and I don't understand it. But I guess, somebody's got to want to live there. I wouldn't. You're looking for the magic, win the war. Heck, I guess not. So okay, well, from Restream, No, no, you can't live with me. You can come live in America for all I care, but you can't come live with me. Well, supposedly, I don't know what's happened, but Restream has picked up Mohammed Razil. Sign up with your email and zip code to our officials and contact you. Well, maybe because there's but I think you should be able to see it. Then there is a, a HTTP web address. Maybe they're waiting for me to approve it or something, but I think you have full access. I don't know. What do you think about the invasion of Corsica? Well, I'm not against the idea. I'm trying to get my transports across the Pacific right now. They're moving at 2 kilometers an hour because for some reason they're thought to be out of supply. Although where they're going has supply, so I don't get it. It's not that I don't want to do it. I just don't know if I need to concentrate. I feel I need to concentrate my forces on the conquest of North Africa first, because I feel too weak as it is. I may not be. I may be super strong. Now, once I get North Africa solved, and cut off all these Italian forces, then absolutely the islands are going to be hit. And hit strongly. So, yes. How are we doing out here? Okay, we're starting to wear these guys down a little bit. How are we doing in air groups? Okay. We got 5. What we're going to do is we're going to send these guys back, hopefully before they all die out, though I think one of them may be already. I think this war in Ukraine is going to kill the EU. In a way, it might have appeared to people it would be a thing that would strengthen the EU, but I think it's going to kill the EU faster because of the fuel situation. So I think the lack of fuel that Europe will be facing will be something that will pit European countries versus European countries. And the populace will not like the idea of suffering for the bad mistakes of other European countries. Like, I guess Germany, finally they've announced in Germany the 3 last nuclear power plants are not going to be shut down, though I'm not sure of that. And I don't know, maybe Arno could correct me. Is it Belgium or the Netherlands that had one nuclear power plant that is still scheduled to be shut down, or has been shut down within the last 30 days or something like that? And I just don't see Belgium. Okay, thanks, Arno. Yeah. And I just really have to wonder how the people of Europe are going to think about this. as time goes on. So I think this winter is going to be really harsh. I already know from talking to quite a bit with Eric, there is a... Okay, we're going to stop pushing here because we've lost too much. Wait till reinforcements come up. And yeah, they're counterattacking, but we can hold that for a little while. They're suffering high energy prices because they're continuing to sell electricity to south, whether it's to Denmark or the Netherlands or Germany or wherever, and it's driving their electricity up, their prices up. So they're not happy with it. People who have always voted left, I mean, I would call it communism. I mean, it may not be full-on Leninist Marxism, but people that have been voting, for the Workers' Party, at minimum what we would call, in my opinion, socialism. Okay, we're down to very low escort, so let's do a few escorts. So that are now seriously, for the first time maybe in their lives, literally, thinking about voting for something a bit more right-wing. Now, I don't, in real perspectives, I don't know how right-wing the right-wing is, meaning are they just only partially socialist and not fully socialist or whatever. But I'm seeing, and it's because of energy prices. I think Jordan Peterson said something along the lines of eco-terrorists have been holding Europe hostage for decades and sit on high horse when importing gas they need. Oh God, yeah. There are, I mean, I call them, and I'd broaden the scope to eco-mentalists, though, which are just people that are, I mean, we could argue about global warming. Is it even happening? I don't know. I don't have all the facts. I'm not going to argue it right here, right now. I do know from history that we've had, at least in the northern hemisphere, because that's where most history is, people. I don't know if you realize this. Most everybody lives in the northern hemisphere. This map isn't entirely correct, but it's right about through here is where the equator is in Africa. So, there's huge, like 100 million people or something living today in Nigeria alone, or 80 million, and a similar amount of people living in Egypt, all along the River Nile kind of place, and other places that are large populations in Africa. Where you get down here and south of the equator, it gets a lot less, but there's still a bunch. But it's a lot drier and a lot less below the equator. And now this way is sort of off because the equator sort of goes through a bit more northern here in Brazil, I believe. So it's not quite aligned here. And so, yeah, you have Argentina, Chile, and most of the people in Brazil live south of the equator, true. But, and so, but that runs, sort of through here. So I think like most of the populous parts, I think Java is below the equator, but, is coming through here. So, yeah, I mean, okay, but if you look at human history, it's China, India, Europe. I mean, in the Middle East, that's all Northern Hemisphere. That's for history, meaning written word that we have. Because, yes, there were books in the Aztec Empire, very, very few of them remained, a lot of them because they were religious texts, or at least perceived to be so, and the Catholic missionaries coming in were burning all that stuff. Very few examples remain. And of course, all their, pictographs, hieroglyphs, because it's all hieroglyphs, not Egyptian, but just other ones on the temples. So yeah, there was writing down in, in Aztecs and the Incas and whatnot. So yeah, but outside of that, basically there's no real writing in North America and no real writing in Africa. And obviously down here, no real writing until, the Europeans are showing up. So, hello, Penjory, how you doing? I don't think that's what black and white. Now I think now all the left and green people are happy about forest green. It's like wet dream to them. Well, we used to call them watermelons, the Green Party. Because they are green on the outside and red on the inside. I truly believe the Western European green movement is just a continuation of communism, and using the environment as the excuse. The only places that a communist revolution has ever been successful have been in agrarian societies. And that, according to Marx, is not the way it's supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen in a sort of industrial or post-industrial, type world. But the only place they've ever been successful have been in agrarian societies. Russia, yes, sure. You had, some industry in Leningrad, sort of Moscow axis, in the Tula arsenals. But really, Russia was an agrarian society. China, obviously, an agrarian society. A lot of places in Latin America, like Cuba, Nicaragua, agrarian societies. And, communism, like into East Germany, into Poland, into Romania, was imposed there, post-World War. Not a revolution. And capitalism, unlike what Marx has thought, brings about near universal prosperity. I was just thinking about this a few hours before stream. People don't know how rich they are here. People just don't know how rich they are. Because most people in what we'll call Western Europe and North America have better dental and health, medical support than the richest person in the world, the Rockefeller, the whoever, in 1900. Okay? In 1900, compared to the year 2000, in just 100 years, dental and health, have improved so much. The idea of false teeth that can be permanently put into your mouth and feel entirely real to you. You don't realize they're not something awkward and you take in and out or whatever. Can be done now. But even the poorest people on the basic levels of getting, just teeth properly, pulled out, if they're really bad or cavities filled. So just on the basic health, and then how rich you are in compared to 1900, how cities smell sweet instead of smelling. Except for New York City, it's been so long since I've been there. Well, maybe San Francisco. San Francisco smells like shit, and I mean it literally. And New York, I hear, smells like a mixture of urine and sour milk. But outside of those places, and those are local choices to smell that way, not because it's inherent on cities. For some reason, they like the smells. I don't know. The cities are clean because we have good clean water going into the cities and good sewage management going out. Those make you rich, people. Okay? No, you don't get to maybe buy the private jet or even own a personal car, but you're still effing rich compared to what people were 100 or even just 50 years ago, and the technology you have, and that my friend Ari is on a cell phone because his Ethernet cable is broken. And yeah, I know he's he's homeless right now, and that he's living with his family's living with his sister in his sister's home, so it's technically homeless. But he is rich in that he has a computer, a microcomputer in his hand. That's being rich, people. That's being rich. So, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be people richer than you. And unless we have like Elon Musk or somebody like that in the chat right now, there's always going to be people richer than you, everybody, or watching this. So there's always going to be somebody richer than you, certainly. But humanity with capitalism, and I mean free market oriented, competitive market capitalism in the West is rich. Okay? So that means, why is anybody going to die for communism? Okay, why are you going to die? Why are you going to have a communist revolution? So the communists move into the environmentalist fields. First, trying to scare us with the coming ice age. That's what they were trying to do. Now they're trying to scare us with coming, boiling planet and melting of the ice caps. And they're using that to scare people into supporting communism and to create scarcity. We should have an abundance of energy, not trying to use less energy. We should be, hey, can we somehow force 4 times as much power into your computer to make it work better? Great. Let's build, because we have limitless energy. Just look at all this energy. You know what we're looking at? We're looking at hydrogen. We've got hydrogen forever, okay? And if you believe in global warming and you're worrying about sea level rise, let's start converting the sea to separating out the oxygen from the hydrogen, and we've got forever fuel out here. All we got to do is get a good process to energy efficiently separate out the hydrogen. And I don't know how to solve that, but they don't want to do those energy solving problems. And yes, I know the price of uranium is up because France is actually expanding nuclear power plants, but of course, being France, they don't do it in an efficient manner, and they don't do maintenance in an efficient manner. So a lot of their power plants are offline for maintenance right now. Literally like a third of the amount of power that France can generate is going to be offline this winter. So the green movement is what they're using to motivate the common person and to support communism. So you're absolutely right. Penjori, I haven't seen you here before, but maybe I just don't remember your name. Sorry. If you have been, good to have you here. If you're new, please hit the follow button. But yeah, so that is my analysis of things. And I think, yeah, European populists don't want to get nuked for Ukraine. Uh-oh. Okay. Okay, guys. We've got to, okay, stop the invasion. Okay, we've let this get out of hand. So all of these forces first come back up to here. rebase. Sail is more or less a group. Get out of here. I think we need to take some of these other islands. Well, I don't know. Because we're just getting hit from too much air from here. 2 units there, 9 units there. We gotta do it. Hey, Sir Toyjet, how you doing? 100 years ago, almost no one, had refrigerators, microwaves, cars, radios, TVs, cameras, electric lighting, nearly this amount of food with this variety. Absolutely, Ari. That's what I mean when I say we are all good. Oh, I'm doing great, and good to hear you're doing better. Eric did tell me you weren't feeling well yesterday, but glad you're doing better. And so, yeah, we are all rich. Now, again, there are people that are a lot richer than other people. And, yeah, there are people that are really hurting in life. I'm not going to try to pretend there aren't. Now, there's often things like drug addiction and other things that make it really bad. And I'm talking about the Western world. I'm not talking about particularly Ethiopia. They're going through a civil war, the Tigray civil war, and yeah, life sucks for millions and millions of people. And even if you throw in China, we're getting into billions of people. And even in India, which is on a generally upward tilt for the country, but there's still huge amounts of poverty. Yeah, I know all this, but even there, even in a place like India versus 100 years ago in India, and one of the reasons there is so many more people in Africa is because of various inoculations, vaccines that are cheap enough to get in there, that so many more children survive to adulthood than used to. So even their life is a hell of a lot better than it was 100 years ago. So yeah, so that's, so you got to keep it in that time, that not time, but that viewpoint about how things have gotten so much better before you get and realize that all these people that want more or worry about income inequality in the Western world. I don't care about income inequality. I care about standards of living. If the standards of living is really bad for people, well, then that's a problem. And that's what I think is going to be a shock to Europe. I think it's. I really hope, and I don't believe they're quite crazy enough in Europe to try to expand the war outside of Europe. Though I really don't know what's going on with that pipeline problem. Well, I wouldn't put it past the eco-mentalists to have done it. And just using this whole war as an excuse. Okay, well, we're getting some assault landing ships. We got some more assault landing ships coming. We got some divisions, but let's build another division. Yeah, I think semi-motorized. We're not going to go too expensive here. I'm going to do artillery, anti-tank. Let's come down here, give it some trucks. Let's give it motorized support so it doesn't slow it down any more than needed. And yeah, let's give it some dedicated. And not for the America, they use lots of motorcycles, but really no motorcycle reconnaissance like Germany did. They had Jeeps and other light trucks that were doing non-armored car reconnaissance, but the price between it's so much cheaper. Let's be truly American here and do armored cars. Armored cars was really more the thing for the Americans. I remember watching a Cold War propaganda cartoon about how thorough capitalism and competition it has led way to great inventions. It was made by a college, I forget the name out of hand, but basically made it all anti-communist cartoons during the 60s and such. They were great. Yes, the pipeline is all part of Putin's plan to freeze Europe, I'm pretty sure. Well, I really have to wonder. Putin can just turn the pipelines that are damaged, and I don't know how repairable or not they are. Putin can turn that off, but now if he turns it off, obviously the blame goes to Russia. Where if he or somebody else were to blow it up, maybe the blame would go to somebody else instead of Russia. But he could turn them off, and it would always be that if you stop supporting Ukraine, I'll turn them back on, kind of thing. But if they're unable to be turned on because they're either destroyed or non-operational because of, meaning destroyed as in you got to relay all new one. I don't know if you're going to have to relay all new pipeline or whether you can just go in and cut out the damaged sections and stick in a new good section and then pump out all the water and boom, there it goes. I don't know. I just don't know enough about pipelines to know that. But there's the other pipeline that's coming down from Scandinavia that just opened up that wasn't hit. Wouldn't Putin's people also hit that one too? If you're hitting pipelines? And the pipelines were very carefully hit in, supposedly, my understanding, international waters, meaning they did not go into German, Danish or Swedish national territory, at least as defined by the United States. And we define where international waters is. I mean, there's sort of a convention that goes back to England defining where international waters, and we just sort of picked it up and continued that. So now we do, at least we know that Soviet subs and whatnot and certain vessels that can launch covertly. Subs have played around either off the Norwegian coast or the Irish coast or wherever, forget where. And then, there's like 12 feet of cable missing from the cable, the undersea cables, and you have to literally relay it. You can't just go pick it up or go splice in it because there's a lot of little, fiber optic or whatever. I don't know if they're fiber optic or copper or what, but there's a lot of little cables that would need to be hooked up in it. So basically that whole line becomes useless once you cut it. It has to be relayed. And I don't think, because these all have happened within the last few years. And again, hit out in international waters. And the only likely country at the time was Russia. So, yeah, I'm not saying Russia didn't do it, but when you have literal statements from back in, I think it was June, that Biden said he was going to do it. I mean, he didn't say, we're going to send SEAL divers down to this location and blow up your pipeline, everybody. But he did say, we're going to shut down Russia's pipeline or Nord Stream pipelines if they go into Ukraine. He said that. I mean, why did he say that? I don't know, but he said that. And somebody shut down the pipeline. So, do you guys not believe Biden? Do you think, and this was, 6 months ago. I mean, he might still have been somewhat mentally capable at that point of thinking. So you don't believe Biden? I thought all you Europeans, well, Ari not, but most of you Europeans out there trusted and liked Biden. Carrier group doctrine, very good. We like that. Probably that would need to be ended because yes, it's 1945 date. And armored HQs have advanced. If you notice, because I just haven't needed them at all. Oh, no, it's here. I've not been cashing in and getting the HQs, but I'm researching this primarily for the reduce the delay between attacks. That is a big important thing to me. So I would highly recommend you doing that. You know, researching these HQs. And if you don't want them for your nation, Germany has a bit more use for a lot of those HQs, and that they can use them as sort of occupation troops that are cheap or free or whatever. Well, let's do... So I'm very much reserving judgment on who I think cut the pipeline. I do not know who cut the pipeline or let the dogs out. But, uh-oh. Well, somehow, some crazy how, they've convinced Portugal to join the Axis. Now, I will admit that Italy's doing fairly well in the Mediterranean. But there's still British sitting in Gibraltar. And Russia is getting nearly to push into Romania. So one last sort of thing today. I know because of modern speak, and this guy named Orwell warned us about this. Damn, these guys are just moving super slow at 2 kilometers an hour. Warned us about Newspeak or whatever in his book 1984, that they make words, they change the meaning of words and make them meaningless. You know, unity is strength, or diversity is strength, or whatever, you know, however they want to make up bullshit like this and try to convince people that their ideas or whatever they want to spew is good. It isn't. It's mostly crap. And I still believe in definitions of words and that they're important. I really do. And I know around here many of you are well educated on things, but many others of you think you are, but you're not. I'm sorry, you're not. I don't mean it to be harsh. I don't mean it to be condescending that gamer knows everything. God, I don't. But one guy who's fairly new, and he seems like a really great guy and been hanging out with him a lot, marveled that Spain joined NATO while they had a fascist leader. And I go, what? You know? And I sort of lectured him that Franco was not fascist. He was not a fascist. I'm not saying he was a good guy. I'm just saying he wasn't fascist. And this means something. Franco was a nationalist, okay? Franco was a nationalist. Yes, he was a dictator. Yes, he was an authoritarian. Yes, he or his government did bad things. I'm not saying that by saying he wasn't a fascist means that he's all right or he's good or whatever. No, it's just he is not a fascist. He is a nationalist. Yes, during World War II, at least for part of it, Spain's foreign minister, Serrano or something like that, you pronounce it, he was a member of Spain's Falangist or fascist, is just what they called themselves in Spain, party. So Franco, being a nationalist, who restores on his deathbed, or as part of his will, restoring the Spanish monarchy. Does that make him a monarchist? Well, not enough of one to bring the monarchy back in when he was still alive. But Franco led a right-wing coalition government, okay, that included some fascists. Yes, it included some fascists. But he himself, to the best of my knowledge, he never joined the fascist party. He never called himself a fascist. He was not a fascist. He was a dictator. He was a nationalist. He was an authoritarian. He was not a totalitarian, because totalitarians do not either allow or they argue against the idea of competing political parties, and he allowed competing political parties because they weren't all of the fascist party. They were all right-wing parties or acceptable parties to him, but there were multiple political parties, so he was not a totalitarian, he was an authoritarian. Okay. So that part of the rant. Franco was not a fascist. He may be a very bad guy, but he wasn't a fascist. He did not start the Spanish Civil War. He was hanging out down here when it started. Now, once the right-wing coup against the leftist government failed, because the leftist government had assassinated not the leading, most popular general in the army, which wasn't Franco, was, I forget, this other guy, gets picked up by the police, driven away from his home, and found the next morning somewhere in a gutter in the street, shot multiple times. So did he make it to the police department and they shot him at the police department and took him away, or did they just drive him somewhere in this city, say get out of the car and just shoot him? I don't know. Or was he trying to escape? But hey, he peacefully went into the police car and rode away. Maybe he could tell that they weren't driving him to the police station, they were taking him out to somewhere else, and he tried to, realize that they're going to take me out to the field somewhere and shoot me and just bury my body and I just disappear. Maybe that's what he thought and tried to escape. I don't know. But he's killed in police custody after peacefully surrendering. And that gets a group, or in Spanish, a junta of generals to try to do in Spain, to try to do a coup against the government. That fails, and then they bring up Franco and his Army of Africa and really sort of kicks off the Civil War, but Franco doesn't start it. And bad things happen. In the Civil War, after the Civil War, bad things happen. Both sides, bad things happen. But Spain is torn apart. And the reason I'm just going over all this is because we'll get to Portugal in a minute. But Spain is torn apart by the Civil War. It is devastated by the Civil War. Spain was still mostly an agrarian country at the time of the start of the Civil War. It was going through a slow motion communist revolution that was mostly winning elections, but there were both right and left-wing death squads hence the police killing the general. That was a left-wing death squad that wore badges. And it was moving more and more radically to the left. It's really only under Franco later on does he sort of get Spain somewhat industrialized. But Spain is lagging behind. A lot of the agriculture in Spain in 1936 was still muscle-powered, meaning either animals or humans, meaning as opposed to tractors and trucks. They were, animals and pulling plows, that kind of stuff. Maybe some, mechanical whirling things behind the animals. You can look at some late 19th century agricultural implements that are fairly advanced, but they're again operating by being towed by animals as opposed to being powered normally by gasoline engines, but powered by something else. There's still a lot of Europe is still, into the 1970s, they were still using, I know just talking to a Danish person, into like 1960s, 1970s, they were still using farm animals in Denmark for commercial agriculture. Okay, not sort of hobbyist reasons, but the farmer would have a wagon and some animals to pull it, and not a truck, kind of thing, and something that Americans would be scoffing at. That's Denmark. So you can imagine Spain's a lot worse. And there's when you have periods of starvation, or at least in starvation in parts of Spain and low food everywhere in Spain, who's going to get like the least amount of food? Oh, prisoners. So that's part of some of the people dying in some of the prison camps are literally because there's just not enough food in Spain. And there's a lot of people locked up in prison camps because of, they were the soldiers on the losing side of the war, basically. Some of them are either known to have or suspected to be part of massacres that massacred nuns and priests and other, very non-combatant types, that they would just go into a monastery or a nunnery and just shoot everybody, all nuns and priests. What were the nuns and priests doing so bad other than, living, because these aren't even necessarily the preachers going out and, preaching Christianity. These are just Marxist revolutionaries wanting to destroy the church and kill the people off. So, yeah, some of that. So there's not just, there's reasons why some of these people were in prisoner of war camps, because they were known to belong to some unit that was involved in these things. Now, whether some of these units are known that, well, maybe only 20% of the people in, one company went in and did this massacre, but the rest of the battalion might have done other massacres, but they don't know who was in, records aren't good. So there's a lot of reasons there's people in prisoner of war camps well after the Civil War is over. So, bad things happen. I'm not saying, Franco was some, and I'll get to Aries and other people and IKB's comments here in a moment. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to whitewash Franco. I'm just trying to use the right words for identifying people and things. Okay, so Franco knows that to get Spain into World War II, it's not a good thing for Spain. There's just not going to be even if Germany wins and is all conquering of its enemies, Franco may be figuring he wasn't Germany's enemy, so they wouldn't try to conquer me. Italy might, because Italy, I don't know if is Spain's enemy, but that Mussolini guy wants to have the new Roman Empire, and Spain was part of the Roman world, and so I don't know. But there, even if Germany's on the winning side, Spain is so torn up that it just isn't going to benefit Spain to get into the war. Okay, So what he does is, Franco's smart enough and says to Hitler, he doesn't say no. He says, okay, I'll do that. I first need this long list of stuff. Sort of like what the list of stuff that Hitler says to Stalin, or Ribbentrop says to Molotov, or whatever. Says, we need all this oil, this food, this whatever, and minerals and whatnot shipped into us as part of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and onward commercial agreements from there. And Stalin ships all that stuff to Germany to keep Germany from invading for a while. It's sort of that kind of a list, but Franco knows that Germany, it wasn't so big that he technically couldn't fulfill the list, but it was so big that Germany probably wasn't going to be able to. So it was a good way, not saying no, just saying, well, as soon as you can do all these things to make us military efficient to be able to go for it, we'll join you. We're with you, buddy, but first this. So it was a way to say no. But okay, in this reality here, I could see, and like some of it was like, hey, yeah, territory, give us Morocco. Well, that was part of Vichy France. If you give Spain Morocco, well, Vichy France. That's a problem. I mean, that is a problem, because Germany does not, I repeat this, Germany does not have the manpower to fully occupy France and fight all their, the Eastern Front and other fronts. They just do not have the manpower to effectively occupy all of France. So they do a deal with the Vichy saying, yeah, this, is unoccupied France, and this is occupied France, and this little bit over here is now Germany, back again from that had been before World War I, but that's Germany. Now, you're going to keep there. We're going to have police in Paris, French police in Paris and French police everywhere, and they're going to maintain order in France. We're going to put some garrison troops along, the coast and whatnot to make sure those English guys don't become troublesome. But France had better be peaceful. We are not, if you want to keep your colonies, well, okay, you got to give up Indochina to Japan. But if you want to keep the rest of your colonies, you want to keep, it's somewhat the less populated part, because most of it's around this sort of area is the major population area of France, at least at the time. But maybe not almost half of your country unoccupied, home territory unoccupied. You want to keep that unoccupied and keep all your possessions. You better be peaceful. We better not have rebellion. And that goes a long ways to keeping France from becoming a powder keg and having a lot of problems for the Germans. Now, we can see that there were, once, that goes away, there becomes a lot more problems, and there's a lot of German soldiers, as well as we can see a lot of Eastern peoples that are now rearmed that are occupying France, and it's never effectively occupied enough, and it's hugely drawing away troops from other needed theaters. Even if they're second-rate, there's good troops there too. But even if there's a bunch of second-rate troops, well, they could be messing around in Yugoslavia or somewhere behind, killing partisans behind the front lines on the Eastern Front or whatever. There's other jobs for them to do. So yes, if you give up Morocco, that's chipping away. Now, this also in this game, Italy took this during its wars with France, so it got Tunisia. But okay, so let's just say you can induce Spain into the war. That I would say is a possibility, a real possibility, not a probability. And it's just still, there's a 5 or 10% chance that it comes into it. Then you get to Portugal. um, Salazar. He is the dictator of Portugal. He is of the party Novo State, or the New State. It is best described from everything I read as a nationalist party, and that Salazar was a nationalist. Now, there is a party by the exact same name, the Novo State or Stat or whatever, in Brazil, and that party has been described as being a fascist party. Same name, different party, different country, both speak Portuguese. But Salazar is described as a nationalist. Yeah, he's picking and choosing within his ideology, because he is sort of an ideological leader, a bit more than Franco is. Maybe some elements from fascism, but not much. It's just a little bit. Salazar doesn't like, and I will get to some of your chat, Sari, don't worry. Salazar doesn't like Hitler. Okay. And I'm not just sort of saying like, I don't like him that much. No. He doesn't like them so much that he writes an anti-Hitler book. And it's published. He writes it. I'm trying to remember. I'm forgetting the name. And it's around the Nuremberg Code, disliking the Nuremberg Code and sort of the anti-Jewish elements there. It is a whole book on why Hitler is bad, basically. So he writes a book. He hates Hitler enough that he sits down and writes a book and publishes a book in like 1936 or 1937 or some year like that, maybe 38, but definitely before 39. He writes and publishes a book. Why I hate Hitler, kind of thing. And so, yeah. Now, he also respects the very old, if you will, alliance with England that's not always formalized, but does exist. And he doesn't want war to come to the Iberian Peninsula. He doesn't think war is going to help Portugal at all. Doesn't want war anywhere near it. Now, I've thought about this a lot because I've coded, if you remember, Salazar was a leader who didn't take any shit. Yeah, when India took it. Yeah, we'll get to some of that, Harry. When I coded up for the Third Reich events mod that I made, I do have some events that move, in the alliance thing, ticks Portugal closer to the axis. And there are reasons that they would move closer to the axis. Not like they're going to join the axis, but move closer. And there's events that move Spain closer to the axis. I've thought about this, and so what would realistically get Salazar into the Axis camp? And I also realized that once America enters the war, and I think it's either 42 or 43, he allows the Azores to be invaded by America. You could say he doesn't really have a choice. And the Americans sort of, I think, present it like that, mostly so that Salazar doesn't have to say that he invited them in or he allowed them in. But America invades the Azores, but doesn't take over the Azores, in the sense that the small number, very small number, of Portuguese troops, they're still there, they're still armed. The police still function. All of the civil government still functions. It's just the Americans move in and set up some anti-submarine bases, both air to operate, PBYs and other things to go after subs and to be able to dock ships there in the Azores. Now, my understanding is down here there are some submarine bases that are built that I don't know if the Germans ever use, but the Germans sort of, my understanding, at least not send workers, but send some technical advisors. These are sort of like caves that are built into the sides of cliffs to be able to put some submarines into and whatnot. I really don't know if the Germans ever actually operated out of them. By the time that they were maybe completed, Spain is backing off, some support from the Axis. But, there's like a radar station that the Germans build that the Spanish can't get into the radar station. Into it. It's all German operated. And things like that are, and that information is, when they spot ships or aircraft moving around, they radio it to the Germans. So it's a German listening post, and there's a few more of these things around Spain. But as things get worse and worse for Germany, Spain starts shutting these things down. Well, so it's once America's fully into the war, then it takes over this, the islands here, I would say with compliance, if not covert permission, from Salazar and the Portuguese. Doesn't want the war to come to Spain, but by the time that they're coming in there, no one's really thinking Germany's going to invade. And it's after North Africa is secured by the Allies. So it's, Germany's already starting to lose. Now, to get Portugal in, of course, for my money, it would have to be only after Spain has come in, not before. And it would have to be super clear that the Axis was winning. Because, again, I don't think Portugal would wants to come in. It would have to be very much along the idea that if they don't come in, you're going to more or less be invaded. This part of the world, I would say, is more or less enough conquered. But got to take out Malta, got to take out Gibraltar, got to have no allies, whether it's a neutral Vichy France or whether it's Vichy France or somebody fully Axis controlled down here. Realize that there is, and I think Ari sort of alluded to it, Goa, which is here, and then there's Dewey, which is I think sort of here, a little sort of island place, sort of like a little mini Hong Kong, but a bit smaller. That I think Dewey is the oldest European colony in India. So it is ancient, well before the British and the French show up. They're going to lose that. This does not get occupied. Macau does not get occupied. Also Salazar hates the Japanese with a burning passion as well. Hates the Japanese. Macau is not occupied, and these are not, a little bit of Portuguese territory out here is not occupied by the Japanese. But he hates the Japanese. And so, that would be under threat, but, he knows that not that this is important, but, down here, Angola, Mozambique. And realize Spain holds on to Angola and Mozambique, and here Bissau, or Guinea-Bissau as it's sort of called today, until 1975. What happens in 1975? Salazar dies. And basically the army, who is sick of fighting in these wars because it's a conscript army and it's been going on for, I don't know, 10, 20 years. Probably more like 10 years. Mid-60s or something. That there's basically sort of an army revolt about sending conscripts off to fight in these wars, and they don't want to do it. So that's only on after Salazar's death you finally see Portugal's African empire collapsing. So that would have collapsed, unless things are going well. And so, this here may be sort of kind of going well enough, like I say, but without this around here, I'm just not buying that this would be conditions. Oh, also, I think that needs to be taken. Moscow. And probably like Leningrad or something like that. I'm not saying that if there's a continuing war in the East, Salazar wouldn't join into the Axis. But it's got to look like the Soviets have no chance of defeating and driving into Berlin. It might be a situation, like I say, if Moscow's taken, might be a situation that the Soviets have enough factories, have enough resources and industry to sort of keep things alive enough that they keep the Germans from overrunning them, but very much on the defensive in the back. So to some degrees, this is sort of getting close enough, but not anywhere near close enough that I would say that Portugal comes in. And now let's look at some of the chat. Sorry for taking some time. Back to earlier. The real interesting question is, who owns the undersea cables and pipelines in international waters? Who would an attack on them count as an act of war against? Okay, that's a very interesting question. I'll get to that in a bit, but I want to first go through airy stuff on Franco, since we're sort of on the topic. I'm always thinking Franco's a man who needed to play a balancer in the face of the fascists, so he wasn't cooed by them. Well, there was a post-Franco, there wasn't a half-hearted, half-assed, or worse, fascist attempt at a coup in Spain that utterly fails. The strongest party, I would say, in Italy, the political party movement, is monarchism during this time period. And that keeps Mussolini in check. And ultimately, because Mussolini does add fascist battalions to regular divisions, but the army is a royalist, and maybe the Navy and the Air Force as well, but definitely the army is a royalist institution. Is never taken over by the fascists. So, and there's still a king, and so that's a balance. I would say there's a lot of monarchists, and obviously Spain is a monarchy today. And monarchists don't always necessarily have to mean the king is the absolute ruler of the country. It could be the king's cool, and he sort of sits around and he sort of can dismiss parliament to like if he thinks of course if prime minister asks him to dismiss parliament to hold new elections, but if he thinks things are going on a bit wonky and politically and within society, go we're going to dismiss parliament and hold new elections, or you gotta check with me before you make anybody minister. I have to sign off on them. So if I really think somebody is a really bad egg because somebody shows me some secret photos of them doing weird things with shorter humans, if you get my meaning, or something like that, but they don't quite want to break it out into the open just to save face. The king can if they have reasons to to block somebody in. So a king could just sort of, like you're sort of saying there, Ari, sort of play the role of a balancer. So the monarchists, the traditionalists, if you want to call them that, maybe the church, those the strong religious types, which aren't necessarily going down the fascist path, though fascism and Catholicism aren't. They're at odds for structural problems. Okay. Mussolini does a deal with the church that allows the church to have the kids when they're really young and running the schools in Italy, not just the religious schools, but all schools in Italy. Once they get older, the state takes over, meaning the fascist party takes over. So there is some sort of structural problems, but ideological in the, ideological too, because if you believe in the nunneries and the monasteries that are the church holding large chunks of land, that is against fascist ideology, because fascism is everything for the state. But if you're just talking about just the religious aspects, of religious sermons and having churches and cathedrals, fascism isn't necessarily conflicting with it. But there's also, like I say, there's a lot of traditionalism going on. So yeah, but he's a pragmatic man of the right for sure. Franco is. But yeah, IKB's comment is very interesting, and I want to get to that. Okay, not Spain related, but I've always been angry that people who compliment the USSR fail to understand that USSR's entire industry and agricultural basis was by the West constantly had to buy Western equipment. Absolutely. Western tools, Western vehicles, industrialization of their own. Well, yeah. The Soviet Union in, let's just put out a number, 1939 cannot, I want to repeat this, the Soviet Union in 1939 cannot, as far as I know, prove me wrong if you can. I'd love to be proven wrong because I learned more, because I want to know these things. Cannot build the T-34 or the KV tanks. They cannot build them. It is impossible for the Soviet Union to build them. Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact comes along. We're all good buddies now. We're allies in radicalism. Hey, Germany, I want to buy some big steel rolling mills. Like the ones that you use to build the ships and build that really thick armor for the ships. Germany goes, well, we need that oil. We need the food from the Ukraine. Necessary, Stalin will, starve out all the Ukraine again just to, Holodomor too if we need to get us the food that we need. Yeah, okay, we'll sell them the steel rolling mill. They can waste their time building some ships. We'll just sink them with our U-boats. No problem. Yeah. Those steel rolling mills that they couldn't. Now, eventually, the Soviet Union could have built the mills. I'm not saying they couldn't have in time build the mills, but they couldn't in like 1939, 1940. They couldn't roll the steel armor the right thicknesses, because if you look at all of the earlier Soviet tanks, they're fairly thin armor. They cannot roll the heavy armor. Germany sells them the mills or mill setup to be able to make the armor for the T-34 and the KV series and down the road. And yes, I'm not saying that the Soviet Union can't expand eventually, but he sells them to them. The standard Soviet motorcycle, the factory set up by the Germans. Okay. I forget whether it's the BMW, the Z-Puds, or one of the main motorcycles. That's the German motorcycle. The Soviets make thousands or tens of thousands of these motorcycles. Again, the factory set up by the Germans. The standard Soviet anti-tank gun at the time of the invasion, because it actually happens, I think, a little bit before, is a 45 millimeter anti-tank gun. If you look at it, It is a licensed copy of the PAC 36, which is a 37. The Soviets work with the Germans and up the scale from 37 millimeter to 45 millimeter, but it is a licensed copy. Germany sets up the factory for the anti-tank guns. Okay, again, this is Germany setting up the Soviet industry. The Soviets can do some of these things, but it's going to take them a lot longer, and their production levels aren't nearly enough. And they do buy other machinery that allows them to make machine tools, certainly. So, and all the way up until the collapse of the Soviet Union, they have to buy a lot of industrial capacity through the whole period. Okay, you rarely hear about it. Yes, Perón too was a fascist leader. I really, okay, Perón down in Argentina. I'm not sure, and I'm not going to claim to know. I've watched a few movies, including the things, but now he was alive during World War II, but he was in power, if I'm not mistaken, in the 50s mostly. And I don't know that he was fascist. I'm not saying he wasn't. I just don't know. I don't know enough on Perón of Argentina. Salazar was leader who didn't take any shit. Yes, India took over Goa and other Portuguese colonies. He just created governments in exile and never acknowledged that. I didn't know that he did the governments in exile. Okay, I also respect Houthi and Boris. They weren't evil or bad, just men in a position either join or die. Every time they could, they acted against Germany. Yeah, I wouldn't call either of them evil. Unless it's the banality of evil, not fighting, giving in to evil and not fighting it. But they both worked to save what they could of their Jewish populations, yes. Though I know in Bulgaria's case, even though they get this territory over here, they allow Jews to be deported from their newly acquired territory, which would be citizens, and I think all the Jews would have signed up to be Bulgarian citizens if it meant not to be deported. So you're getting a little on the iffy there. Hello, Tinky Tink. How you doing? You suspect Balbo for how he treated the German inspections of Libya, showed Jewish temples and architectures with pride. Sassy guy. Yeah, Mussolini also at one point makes a speech that Jews have always been part of Rome, blah, blah, blah. Fascism as expressed by Mussolini, and he is the founder of fascism, and there's also some other fascist thinkers around, and I don't know it like and who all these people are, like I sort of know, Goebbels and all the various Nazi guys. So I don't know it well. I know bits and pieces. It is not a racial I'm not saying they weren't racist and thinking that they were better than, say, Africans or something like that. But and I don't know the average fascist view of whether they're. I'm a culturalist, people. I look at culture. I live in, in Southern California in a multicultural world, and I've met people that were, say, Japanese, that were the third or fourth generation here in America, and I've met Japanese, right off the plane from Japan. And those are very different peoples, okay? Very different peoples. And so I believe culture is the main difference between large groups of people. That's what I believe. And so it's culture. I do think, looking back in the past, they often use the term race for like the race of Frenchmen or something. And they're not necessarily meaning bloodlines, but they're sort of kind of meaning culture, but they're also sort of kind of meaning bloodlines. And so 19th century viewpoints between race and culture, I don't know how strong, and it can vary from, different sorts of expression of them. I remember reading about a guy running for parliament who, I think in the southeast of England, was, and this is in before World War II, maybe even before World War I, but pretty early in there, and he is railing against foreign influence in Britain. He was very, very, British. He was born in India. Okay. He was, obviously, pro the British Empire and all of that kind of stuff. So that you get the idea that people aren't always, and he was someone, I think he grew up mostly in Britain or something, and spoke in a British manner and not like an Indian. And he was running for parliament in there. So I don't know how much they viewed it. Also, when like Hitler visits Rome one of the times, you see some of the photos in Third Reich events in which proudly displayed are high-ranking individuals from Black Africa, Ethiopia or Somalia or Eritrea. I'm not exactly sure, but as sort of being shown off, but in a very positive light. As part of the greater new Roman Empire. Best as I can understand, Mussolini wants like this, not maybe necessarily going deep into, the Balkans, but wants the coast, and he wants to turn all these people Italian. But it's not in the Nazi sort of way of killing off the local people and shipping Italians in. He wants to teach all these people Italian, or their children, not necessarily like immediately they all become Italian, but over the generations, to have these all become Italians by teaching them Italian, by enculturating them in Italy. So at least when we're talking about Europe, or Europeans or whatever, as far as I can tell with fascist Italy, it is entirely a cultural viewpoint, not a racial one. So Mussolini and the fascists in Italy are not on a massive anti-Jewish trek, and you really, to the best of my knowledge, the only time you get taking Jews out of Italy to camps and places is after the fall of Mussolini. Now, of course, when it's the Italian Social Republic up where Mussolini is being the puppet, they're taking the Jews out. He's lost all real power. He's just sort of some figurehead pseudo-administrator under German puppetry. But yeah, it's Mussolini, Balboa, who gets shot down by Italian anti-aircraft. I know there's suspicions that it was Mussolini's orders because he's jealous of him. I don't quite think so. I just think it was mistaken aircraft and he gets shot down. So yeah, I'm has a street and a statue in Chicago, I believe. Yeah, very well could, Harry. I have no clue of Soviets during the time. They only appeared on our curriculum for Ribbentrop and after Barbarossa started. Okay, interesting. I think after the Soviets failed in Poland, they were not nearly as well situated as they made the world believe. The Soviets had an internal war during the time. No clue, but really I expect happened in the 30s and 40s. Okay. Only reason the Poles lost against them in World War II is because of the old Polish leaders told them not to fight them. They told them not to fight, but they were going to be overrun anyways. They were doing their best to evacuate as much as they could into Romania by that point in the war. They couldn't have held. They couldn't. Poland just doesn't have the resources to hold a two-front war. Just doesn't. Hello, NMDB. Italians showed off Italianized Ethiopians. Oh no, they weren't to Nazi visitors, much to their disgust. Well, I don't know if I don't have the reactions of the Nazi visitors, but they weren't Italian. I mean, they were wearing African style clothing, which was which was full coverings. They weren't wearing primitive clothes, but they weren't dressed as like Italian clothes. They were dressed in African or Eritrean or Somali type clothes. Flowing robes and that kind of stuff. They weren't hiding their ethnicity. These weren't look, we've civilized people out there and made them look Italian. No, these were, from the photos that I've seen, these were, hey, look at our exotic peoples from our empire kind of thing. So they weren't, and I don't know that they particularly spoke Italian either. But they were at least in Rome for the Hitler's visit, and I don't know how they got there. Meaning, were they just there anyways and trotted out because there was a big parade, and you could see that there were also lines of Italian soldiers and lots of flags being flown and people being around. So it was during a big sort of thing. So I don't know whether they were just flown up from Eritrea or wherever for the occasion, or if they were already in Rome for whatever reason. But yeah, so that's as far as I can tell. There's a lot of difference, a lot more than most people think, between fascism and Nazism, including core beliefs. Nazism, or National Socialism as expressed by Adolf Hitler, it's a religion, people. It is a religion, because it goes into not just like economics and politics of economics and your political structures. It's going into fundamental religious beliefs, and it is very anti-Christian. Hitler does believe in a higher power, and I think as life goes on, he believes in it more and more, mainly around always being saved from all these assassination attempts, and probably being saved from the wounds in World War I. He very much believes in a higher power, but it is not the Christian God. In fact, I think he believes, and I've read several books on the topic, and some of the authors, they all agree that he's not a Christian, but they conflict on whether he's a pagan or some other sort of neo-type things. The Nazis thought Italians were trying to offend them. They might have, NMDB. Like I say, I've not read of the reaction what the Nazis had of them, but they very well might have. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's the Nazis are trying to erode Christianity, and Hitler at one of the occasions talking about this subject was talks about his mother, who's dead obviously by that point, but I wouldn't want to, I forget, lock up or imprison my mother for her beliefs. No, we're going to leave the people be, in their religious beliefs, but we're going to get to the young and raise them in a non-Christian way. So they ban religious schools. Everybody must go to the state schools. All the kids, all the right type of kids, meaning not Jews, not others, but all the right type of kids have got to go to the Hitler Youth, and so that they want to erode any sort of Christianity within them. So Hitler's methods for dealing with good Germans is more let them be Protestant, let them be Catholic or whatever. We're just going to erode the next generation as it comes along's beliefs in any sort of Christianity. And that's their methods of dealing with it. But it's to replace, not like the Soviet atheist, which atheism is a religion, people. Religion is a belief of, how do I put it shortly? Of how and why things got created and happened and whatnot. So atheism, just believes that there's no gods. That's a type of belief. Okay, so that's sort of Sovietism is, and Marxist-Leninist Sovietism, whatever you want to call it, is does have a religious component in that it is anti any sort of belief in higher powers. National Socialism is putting this sort of I think it's more of a neo-paganism viewpoint, but it is, and some of these authors is some other sort of spiritualism or whatever, but it is a spiritualism. It is a belief in a higher power, but but it's expressed through the party and the will of the people and the whole blood and soil thing, and it's all of that. Where fascism doesn't have a religious component. Now, they believe in the state for organizing humanity. And so, say something, not that the monastery exists is bad, but the monastery, say, administering a bunch of farmland, that is bad because it needs to be organized by the state. So the church owning properties outside of the actual religious buildings, whether it's the cathedral or a housing place for, monks or nuns or something, a nunnery or monastery or something, outside of owning that type of property is a no-no under fascism. Nazism, fascism, which comes out of socialism, and the extreme versions of socialism are communism. All of these ideologies are all collectivists. Okay, they all believe that the land and the means of production are owned collectively. The communists and socialists want to get rid of what they see as the national state, not necessarily the government, but the national state, and they believe that the state is what should own and manage the means of production. The fascists believe it is a collectivist, but it is not a leveling, meaning everybody should be equal ideology. It believes in hierarchies, and so some people, maybe that, whether they're a sports star, football or whatever, or whether they are just an advanced machinist is going to get paid more than an apprentice machinist, or a standard, non-apprentice but not advanced machinist. Meaning you can have a hierarchy of being paid, or you can, own a factory, but whether solely or set it up in partnership or shares or whatever, but society is going to be administered by the state, organized by the state, so that everything is well balanced and well functioning and centrally planned. Okay, centrally planned. The National Socialist under Hitler does not like central planning. Hitler wants competition. He doesn't want what he sees as the exploitative nature of capitalism, meaning, and market capitalism, not just capitalists, but also capitalist as in people with capital. He doesn't want the idea of the factory to try to pay as little as possible to the workers and sell the product as high as possible to the public to maximize profit. What he wants is factories, different companies, to compete against each other, like shoe manufacturers. Who makes the best shoe or the most stylish shoe or whatever. He wants that competition to happen because he believes in sort of a Darwinian viewpoint of the world. So he does not, and he gets centralized planning under Speer, but only because it's the war. Only because it's the war, not because that's what he wants. So he wants shoe companies to compete against each other, but he wants to make sure that all of the workers all get what, I guess, use a modern term, a living wage, so that there are no grindingly poor people. Obviously, there'll be richer and poorer people in the spectrum, but they will all make a good minimum sort of wage. And outside of some, Hitler's not against the idea of a luxury brand, of high-end goods for just a few people, but we're talking for what he wants to see as basically the middle class in Germany. You can't overly charge too much for your shoes, and even if there becomes a scarcity, like for some reason everybody's shoes all fall apart, I don't know why, there's a flood or whatever, and everybody wants to run out buy shoes, he won't allow prices to climb because of scarcity. Prices can climb because of, say, if materials become more expensive or something, well, then of course prices will need to climb. But not just because of scarcity, like, well, hey, they'll pay $5 instead of $4 for the shoes just because they need them now. No, those are $4 shoes. You get to sell them for $4 shoes. Just because people are willing to hand over more money doesn't mean you get to exploit the society. So it's collective ownership so long as you're not exploitive. Or you can be privately and individually run and competitively run so long as you're not exploiting the collective. And then once you exploit the collective, well, then the state will step in and correct that exploiting of the collective. So you say Nazism is a religion in the same way as Christianity is not quite right. Hitler believed in something he called providence. Nazism is insanely materialistic. NMDB, I would highly recommend the book called Hitler's Monsters. That is a great, you can find it on Amazon. It is a great book. I'm betting on that book as being the best one. And then there's another one, also you can get on Amazon, Hitler's Religion. I've read both of the books. Well, actually, technically, I've listened to them. It was while I was working at a job that I could spend about 6 to 8 hours a day listening to things on the audio, but I couldn't have a book with me. So I've, in reading these books and whatnot, I've looked at it, and you can look at sort of the extreme views of Himmler and expressed within the SS. Those are different views than Hitler, but they were working along similar lines. But Himmler was going further than Hitler. But Hitler wasn't stopping or putting brakes on Himmler's viewpoints within the SS. He was it was through the party was going to express it, and they had yet to create a clergy, if you will. They tried to create a Nazi Christian thing that failed utterly, and it was meant really to be a subversive element within Christianity and sort of try to destroy Christianity from within Germany. It really wasn't an honest take on Christianity. So, yeah, and you have to watch with Hitler. He contradicts himself all the time, literally in the same day. Because he'll give a speech to one group of people, like workers, I'm going to do this, and then go give a speech to a smaller group of industrialists and literally contradict himself running for campaigns. So people often with Hitler will find the thing that supports their thesis and go, Hitler was Christian because he went to a cathedral and he spoke and he praised Christianity and whatnot. Well, yeah, and Mussolini asks Hitler in a private situation, relatively private, not in like a big public thing. There were some other people around him. I think on the same trip to Rome that we were talking about. And how do you deal with the church? Mussolini asks Hitler. And Hitler's response was, I don't have any Christians around me, or words to that effect. And with that, I looked around, every single one of Hitler's sort of inner circle types, none of them are Christians. Absolutely none of them are Christians. Anybody who is high up in the German hierarchies, whether it's in the Navy, in the Army, in civil service, government, there are Christians, most notably Franz von Papen, who's a Catholic, who was, of course, Chancellor of Germany before Hitler, and the reshuffle gets demoted and created, because it's not always a vice chancellorship as a position, but position created as vice chancellor to sort of with Hindenburg on top, and von Papen below. It was meant to lock in and keep Hitler from having too much power. Franz von Papen, for all of his faults in the world, he was a very strong Catholic Christian. He continues with that belief, involves in the Knights of whatever. I think the sort of successing element coming out of the Knights, I guess St. John or whatever, of Malta. I think it was that, or one of the other ones is involved in that. And so he's very high up in it. As soon as Hindenburg is gone, his position is eliminated, and even when he is in his position, he is not part of Hitler's inner circle. After it's eliminated, he is sent to special envoy to Austria, whose mission is to get Austria into the Reich. So he's sent there particularly because he's a Catholic. Austria, obviously, being a Catholic country. So a quote-unquote acceptable kind of guy. Franz von Papen is never really a Nazi because he's a Christian. He dislikes a lot of Hitler, but he, I would say, mistakenly believes that Hitler is just a bump in the road, and then once Hitler dies, Germany's going to go back to being Germany or whatever. It's just a phase that they're going through, I think, is what he probably tells himself. I have not read about too much of a biography on him. And then once Austria comes in, he loses his job because there's no longer, an Austria to be special envoy from. And then I forget, but eventually he's sent down, well, sort of Ankara, but also spending a lot of his time, I think, in Istanbul as Germany's basic special envoy, whatever, to Turkey. I think sometime around 1944, he's recalled home to Germany, and he doesn't go. Now he's maybe pleads to the wounds or something in the assassination attempt or whatever it is, but he refuses to go back to Germany until the war is over, because he knows he will not fare well, partially because, and I don't think he really tries, but he doesn't get, his mission is, of course, is to get Turkey into the Axis, and he does not. So, hello, Corporal Grievna, how you doing? And Beam Slam is here. Hello, how you doing? So yeah, that's why don't I play Hoi 4? I've been playing this game. I think, well, we're going to end this episode here. I want to thank you all for getting this far and listening to all my talks. I will see you next time for more Hearts of Iron. And we will be continuing the stream here. I just wanted to end that episode. I like Hoi 4. I just been playing Hoi 3. I've sort of had been waiting for, and I haven't been watching, but waiting for Black Ice, the Hoi 4 Black Ice team to get their version out. To the last version of Hoi 4. I know there's a new one that's just now out. I really love Hearts of Iron 3 Black Ice. In some ways it's better, in some ways Hoi 4 is better, but neither of them are great. So yeah, if you look around my YouTube channel, I played a lot of Hoi 4, so if you want to watch those and not the Hoi 3, we have a lot of videos for you. And we're having a really slow, so what I'm going to do is, once this finishes saving, I'm going to restart the game. Okay, there we go. Whenever you get a really long save like that, you want to just quit the game. Your screen will go black, but don't worry, it's not bad in the dark. The lights will come back on in just a moment. We'll be up. Back. I know that went off on a long tangent from looking at would Portugal have joined the Axis or not. But hope it was interesting. Oh, good. Well, you should get lights back any moment now. We'll just come to this version of it. I shouldn't be scaring you. The world should be scaring you. That would be the scary thing. All right, let's look here. Well, got these. Do that, and yeah, we'll do this. Yeah, okay. I think we're more or less ready to continue here. Okay, so need to push into North Africa, and these guys are crawling out of here. God damn, I hate this oil situation here. We do have no, let's just send these guys over to here. Let's send them that way. Disperse our shipping a little bit. Okay. Well, let's make another episode. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here, and we are going to continue, hopefully, our conquest of North Africa, kicking the Italians out. And we're continuing something between an island hopping and an island conquering campaign out in the Pacific, but we need to go back and get ourselves reorganized. So, let's see how that goes. Your battles here. Yes, you can have metal. Oh, okay, these guys are no longer defending, so what we're going to do is it's right along the coastal plain here. These guys can move into the hills and mountains. That with a broad front. They're all moving now. Good. Moving forward. You guys keep moving forward. The other one. Problems for fuel. That shouldn't be a problem because So since we have a few people here, I would really like to hear either on YouTube or on Twitch what country do you think sabotaged the pipeline? Not that you got to know. And there's I can think of multiple reasons for multiple viewpoints, but what do you guys think of who? Germany? You think Germany did it? Okay. That's interesting coming from you. You want to expand on why is fine. If you don't, that's fine too, but I've also sort of entertained the thought that it wasn't a state actor, national government, but that it was maybe a Greens of some sort using the war as a cover for getting it. Can't see no other than Russia. Okay, beam slam. Don't know if anybody else wants to wade in. Even if you waded in before last episode, you could wade in again. We're going to send you all the way, all the way back to the U.S. and get prepared. Okay, there's plenty of space there. Let's see about getting, well, almost, but not quite. Let's send you guys up there. Many Germans think we should keep countries with Russia and are against the sanctions. Yes, crash the pipeline, problem solved, everyone mad. Okay. I can see that as a way of thinking. Especially if they think they can do it without, fingers getting pointed back to them. That, like you say, everybody mad and not at them for their policies, but mad at Russia or whatever. Another Western power, but same reasoning. Yeah. Well, again, I'm not saying that this is conclusive proof, but Biden said he was going to do it. Now, do you not trust Biden when he says something? He said he was going to shut the pipeline down if Russia invaded Ukraine. He didn't say he was going to swim out there personally and blow it up. Didn't even say he was going to blow it up. He said he was going to shut it down. So, I don't know. Oh, that's right. Sorry, let me go up here and scroll. But I wanted to get to, I think it was who was it here? I want to give credit. Oh, IKB. Okay, sorry, IKB. I went too long and forgot. IKB asked me a very interesting question. The real interesting, well, he even says it, the real interesting question: who owns undersea cables and pipelines in international waters? Who would an attack on them count as an act of war against? Okay. Well, I am not an international lawyer or a lawyer of any type, but my reasoning would be, okay, one, some definitions, and this comes from America, but there's only one nation that counts when it comes to international law regarding the sea, and that nation is the United States. And if you want to ask me why only America counts, why not all nations are equal, or why America counts. Well, it's because America has a lot of submarines and a lot of carriers. And they're very good carriers. And they're very good submarines. And in both cases, and it says it would go in case of invasion. I'm inclined to believe it. Right. Victoria Nuland, you're saying. Could be Russia as well. Yes, could be. Oh, there could be a lot of people. Like I say, it could be greenies that because they used to ram ships with their boats. They would do things like that. So yeah, it could be all kinds of people. So the United States, when it comes to international, or when it comes to the sea, the U.S. is the one nation that really counts. Any other nation, they can have a voice, but it's what the U.S. says goes. And so international law says that you have just a little bit out in the, I think, is it 12 or 24 miles? I forget right offhand. Again, I'm not a lawyer on the subject, but it's just a little bit of things. Territory outside here. And which is not enough to get both sides here. Whatever it is, I forget. So when it's in this kind of situation, their territorial waters mind you, come out just a little ways and must allow a channel wide enough for general shipping to come through. You do not get to claim, between Djibouti and Yemen here in modern day world, get to claim this enough that shuts down international traffic. So unless you're getting to an inland canal, like here, you cannot shut it down. Eilat, right here, Eilat is also a little port city there. That is Israel's port city. And it's not much of a port like, a cargo port. It's more of a luxury port for, sailing boats and, little fishing boats. And maybe there's big enough to a ferry or two or something, but not much. Well, Saudi Arabia and Egypt cannot shut down Israel's access out to the sea through here. So there must be a channel navigable out here that, unless it's a time of war or something, Israel gets to come and go through their Red Sea port. You don't get to do that. That's what America says, so that's what it is. Now, what America does allow for is economic zones. So, and economic zones cannot interrupt or disrupt free navigation of the seas, whether by commercial shipping or, again, a private sailboat that's sailing around, the Mediterranean. But there are economic zones. Now, Turkey claims a bunch and, out into here, but why Turkey? I mean, literally almost to Egypt, but Turkey claims a hell of a lot. Where a lot of these other nations, they sort of, Cyprus, just because northern Cyprus is invaded and conquered by Turkey, and they set up a puppet government that nobody but Turkey recognizes. But what is in practice is, Cyprus's economic zone is something like this, and Israel's economic zone is something like this, out into here, and Egypt is, out to here, and Greece is, around through here. And these economic zones can definitely deal with the sea bottom, particularly what you would be bringing up is oil, but potentially other mining from the sea bottom, and fishing. So they can control. The idea is that a bunch of Egyptian factory ships shouldn't be allowed to come sit off just outside of territorial waters and just rape the seas here of Israel. Catch everything in the net, throw nothing back, and just, plunder. No, Israel gets to start to have an economic zone. Cyprus does, and that's for fishing. And so you do have exclusive economic zones, but that is not territorial waters. Okay, and so the new IKB's question was pipelines and undersea cables outside of territorial waters, because my understanding is the ruptures, and they believe because of seismic detection, so it's a fairly big explosion that popped the pipelines. So that also means it probably just wasn't some ship out there with an anchor dragging along the bottom and catching it and just oops, we caught it and we poked a hole in it. No, it was a bit more than something like that, as far as I could tell. And I'm not an expert, but it was just outside in international waters. Well, I would say that if we take American precedent here of this, that let's just say Israel wants to have a undersea cable to Sudan. Okay, so they want to, come out from Israel, go to Sudan. Port Sudan is right here. See, it even says Port Sudan. And so wants to do that. That Saudi Arabia and Egypt have to allow a navigable passage through the waters. They can't claim all of the Red Sea as their territory, so it's a navigable ocean. But this can be split up to their economic zones, because for oil drilling or fishing or whatever, and divided right down the middle here. I would say that economic zones do not affect pipelines or cables. I would say a pipeline and a cable is equivalent to a ship. Without permission of a nation, you cannot lay a pipeline or a cable through someone's territorial waters. But again, there should be, if they want to say Israel to Somaliland wants to lay a cable out through here and just, basically lay it out in the channel down there, and, boom. I mean, probably they wouldn't be doing a pipeline all the way through the Red Sea, but you never know. But a cable might be theoretically something they would do. Just lay that out there. So I would say that who owns, I don't know who owns Nord Stream pipeline. Maybe somebody could tell me. Obviously, I know that Russia puts natural gas into the pipeline, but I don't know that they own it, meaning that they're paying for it to be built, or they're the ones constructing either it on land and then taking it out and constructing it, meaning the segments on land, or whether they're the ones deploying it out into the ocean or the sea or whatever. It doesn't matter. It sort of does matter to a little bit, but again, according to the United States, this is navigable sea waters. These different islands, they matter for territorial. This is Dane, which is off here, I believe, is where it happened. But everybody still gets to move ships in and out. You can't blockade Lithuania from going between Finland and Sweden. So if Lithuania wanted to run a pipeline through the ocean to Norway, they can do so, but they just got to go through the channel, through the approved channels, and work out and not damage somebody else's pipeline. So I would say that it belongs to who builds it, not who touches it. Because let's say if it's a German endeavor to connect Norway to Lithuania, they built it, they paid for it. It hooks up those two countries, but it's a German pipeline. Why they would be building it, I don't know. Now, unless they were commissioned, which normally means somebody else is paying for it, then just because they're the builder of it doesn't matter if they're commissioned by somebody else. So I would say either if somebody's commissioning it or who is paying for it and building it is who owns it, even in international waters. And so if you cut a cable that is equivalent of sinking a ship in international waters that would be, say, an automated ship, not like because there's also whole laws of the seas of an abandoned ship, that there's nobody on. You can just sort of go out and pick up and take. Well, let's say it's an automated ship that's out there that flies a big flag and is navigable, so it's under operation, under control. It's not an abandoned vessel, but nobody's on it. It would be equivalent of sinking one of them, or equivalent of shooting down a drone in international airspace. And airspace gets to be, the U.S. wanted to say that you could fly over countries, but that to some degree has been given up with their flights once they got satellites good enough. But we definitely, the United States, because again, we for a while with loss of the space shuttles couldn't get to space, but now we have Elon Musk, so we can get to space again. He's like almost daily putting rockets into space, if you guys don't realize it, or at least weekly. So you don't get to control the outside of the atmosphere, and I know like Iran shot down a U.S. drone over Iran, so that would be an Iranian airspace. But it would be the same as shooting down an American drone over the Indian Ocean or something. I would say that would be estimated that several hundred kilos of explosive was used. In all likely, much less was necessary to make a hole in it if using directional charges. Absolutely, shaped charges. Some of the stuff pictures I seen look like pretty big pipes, but yeah, I think it's owned by the Russian state, but the incident was in economic zone of Sweden and Denmark. Yeah, in the economic zone, but not in territorial waters. So that is a point. But get back to IKB. I would say if it is if it is owned by Russia, then it would be an attack upon Russia, and Russia owns that. But I would say we know or have super strong evidence that Russia has killed a couple of undersea cables within the last year or two. The door, and we can research more things. What are we doing for leadership? Okay, good. Well, finally, we're taking down a lot of German subs. Do you really think, Beam Slam, they don't know who's responsible? Supposedly, the CIA, which I don't trust the CIA, but that doesn't mean that they're always lying or that that they're wrong or they're right. Supposedly warned Germany some time ago that the pipeline was under threat. I don't know the U.S. presence in the Baltic right now, but I do know the U.S. is capable, from my understanding how deep it is and what's going on, and like you talk about the size of explosives that were put down there, of monitoring and knowing just who's doing things. We are very capable at spotting underwater targets, submarines or underwater drones of a significant size. I'm not saying, some 6-foot, slow torpedo, if you will, covered in stealthy material, but that's not what we're talking about. And if there's divers going down, it doesn't have to be divers, but if there's divers, there needs to be a support ship or a support sub. And if the U.S. is monitoring it, we know who was there. Now, that doesn't mean that the U.S. was. There may have been no U.S. assets in this region. I just don't know. Oh, well, I don't know that the police will ever know, because I don't know that if the U.S. and saying that I know that the U.S. could monitor it, meaning maybe Germany should be able to monitor the thing if they cared enough to monitor it. But they may not want to tell the police, because if you tell the police, then like if we have video of them coming in and dropping the explosives and going away, then you've admitted to the world that you watched them blow up your pipeline instead of trying to stop them. Whoever it was. So if it was the Americans, the Germans might go, shit, there's American sub launching, a Virginia class. So at least some of the Virginia class, if not all of the Virginia class, has diver lockouts in, like a flooding section that you flood and divers swim out and then, underwater, do their thing underwater and get back in, and they pump the water out, so you don't have to go under the surface. The Virginia class has those. As standard, at least some of the, because there's several different batches of Virginia class. I don't know why they keep calling them Virginia, because they change so much, but whatever. And maybe all of them, but at least some of them do. And sometimes you'll see some of them with a hump on the back of them there that is carrying a submersible vehicle. They may have watched an American submarine come in, and maybe not like quite have cameras on it, but see, there's an American submarine there. Oh, there's divers. There's stuff moving around. Oh, a week later, boom. Oh, well, the only people we saw around there was an American submarine. And they might not want to tell the police, so they might not want to tell the police. So, yeah, or if they saw Russians do it, they might see it and go, well, what are we going to do? Okay, so, well, do we want to shoot it? There's a Russian sub off there launching a mini sub that's carrying explosives. Well, where is it? Oh, it's in international waters. Are we going to shoot at a Russian submarine in international waters? And then when it goes boom, because depending on how they're watching it may not like actually be camera, but meaning they track the sub and they know it's the Russian sub because it leaves Kaliningrad and it goes here and it goes to the spot and then it goes away and 2 days later it goes boom, so and nobody else has been in that area, so we know, unless it was planted 6 years ago and long timer or whatever, it was a Russian submarine that did it. Does the German government want to admit, well, we saw them plant the explosives and we could have stopped them, but it would have meant sinking a Russian submarine? And so when, say, 30,000 Germans are found frozen to death next January, now maybe they saved millions of Germans from a nuclear war, going off and nuclear missiles going off. But does the German government want to admit that they could have stopped it? Now, that doesn't mean that Russia wouldn't have turned off the spigot anyways, So the mere fact that the pipeline still there doesn't mean that the 30,000 dead because of freezing to death in the winter doesn't mean that that would have saved them, but they could have saved the pipeline at that section. They could have saved it, because the Russians could obviously bomb it somewhere else along the pipeline. But they may not want to admit that, in police court. So, I wonder if they ever find it. Yeah, the matter of the police. Okay, probably need to get shrapnel to examine the metal. Yeah, I know. But yeah, but if it's a lot of Semtex or whatever the modern equivalent of, there may not be much fragments to sort of even hardly look at, and I don't know how much explosive residue they'll leave. And it may be generic enough. Cast pilot training advance, good. And light escort, it's probably moved to 45. There's a lot of things they don't tell us for reasons. Good or bad reasons we would agree with or not, or, Not saying that there aren't good reasons not to tell people things. And maybe the reason they don't want to tell anybody is they don't want Russia to know that we could watch them do it. I mean, that's obviously, a very important reason. If whether it's America or Germany or whoever can watch the seabed well enough to know this, maybe they don't want to let the Russians know this, or the Chinese, or whoever. So they're just going to keep silent because it's important to do so. Okay, they're coming for our beaches here. We've got just one division. Not going to be enough to hold. But we've got this. Okay, you fly back to San Diego. Reasonably good groups. And you fly back to San Diego. Okay, you out to the carrier. Hopefully they'll be able to yeah. I'll get there in time, but let's go. Wait now, so they get to come here too. Leave the Oklahoma out of this. We go back to, well, just send you straight back to Holland. You don't need that one battleship. Comes down this way. But if there isn't a consensus on people on who's responsible for the twin towers of the World Trade Center coming down, I've heard a lot of, at least I think, nutty views on that seem to be, a lot of people seem to hold the views, if they can't quite agree upon that after seeing airplanes crash into it. I think the mystery of who sunk the ships will be, or who sunk the ships. I'm looking at these ships. Who blew up the pipeline will be a long ongoing thing. Okay, you come to here. But what we're going to do here is, I don't know how big this is, but we're going to send this group here. Oh, nope, can't quite do it. So, okay. Oh, it's only down to one. And it's both there. So, Halsey, you go first. You're slightly slower. Get about halfway there. And the carriers come in. Single engine airframe research. Good. Grayed out. Twin engine fighter, because we're getting closer and closer to. Idea is to get in here. Oh wow. Okay. Oh, pause. Not you. You guys keep. Yeah. Okay. Good. You keep coming in here. The Akagi, the Hira, the Taiho, the Yamato sunk. Excellent news. Okay, Special Forces, Combined Arms, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, stop that. And small fuel tanks, yes, okay. Big battle still going on. Pennsylvania lost, damn. Let's see what's going on out here. Okay, you guys. Moving, you guys keep moving. Okay, back to the Pacific. Islands. Uh-oh, we've lost a few more. We've lost a carrier. Battleship Division Halsey is just gone. Oh, and research. Oh boy. Well, we might not need so many. Battleship Division is here. I've got a lot more ships than we do, but they're also not necessarily. There are a lot of transports and stuff like that. Do we have any carriers left? Yes, we do. Okay. Here we have Gregory Boyington. Maybe he'll survive this time. Rebased a carrier. out here because carriers may not exist by the time. Full-born mixed support, well, nice. Is oh no, yeah, I want to. Yeah. Nope, you. Some CAG duty. Okay, let's see if we can get some more. Oh, we sent some up to rebuild here. Oh, good, good. One more out, or one more group out there. We have lost the land battle there. They've successfully invaded with a lot of troops. Okay, pause. Musashi sunk. Okay, big battleship went down. Veteran Air Force. Well, now we lost some in air battles that may not be showing up here, but we've lost the Wichita, the Thornton, the San Juan, the Lexington, the Nashville, the Palmer. Now they've lost the Musashi super battleship. Okay, well, guys, you go back to Honolulu. Well, we just lost a huge chunk of the American Navy. Unlike the last time, at least this time we took a lot with us. Let's build 2 battleships. The carriers don't seem to do well on their own. Well, move you to the bottom. Move you guys to the bottom to be able to get these guys in production now. Yeah, we've lost a lot, guys. And some of those were old battleships, the Arizona type kind of class, but still. That was a hell of a loss. Either we shouldn't have engaged because it was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, or we should have made sure that we got this battleship group in along with the others. We could have had air operations from the shore that would have been helpful, both fighters and bombers. Could have done a lot better, but man, that was costly. Well, I think on that note, we'll end this episode here. I want to thank you all, but particularly I want to thank Tim, Strongarm, Niagro, Timothy, and Sir Toyjet for support over on Patreon. But really what I'm asking everyone to do, if you would, smash that like button. And, if you're watching on YouTube or whatever, make a comment. It really helps with the algorithm, and I'll probably answer it. Even just say hi. I really do appreciate that. That's what I really want to see here is channel growth, and comments and hitting like button really helps. So thank you so much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron. Okay, guys, I think we're going to end it for today too. Tomorrow will be War Thunder. I don't know if we've decided on doing any custom battles or something. Thank you for waving goodbye. We might reprise some of either the North Africa or some of the other custom battles that we did in the last few weeks, or I don't know if we're going to do something new tomorrow, but you're all welcome if you want to join and play or just watch and hang out. Love to see you then, and of course we'll be back next weekend with more Hearts of Iron and War Thunder also next weekend, but hopefully see you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone, I really do appreciate it. I love hanging out with you.